Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at a character whose journey, well, it's just fascinating, isn't it? Through the early Universal Century timeline in Mobile Suit Gundam, the origin.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
talking Artesia Som Deikun, the exiled princess,
Yeah.
and how she has to navigate this really dangerous world as Sayla Mass, the pragmatic soldier.
Mm-hmm.
How do these two sides of her, these identities, how do they not just exist side by side, but actually, like, actively shape her role, her really pivotal role?
That's the core question, yeah.
That's our deep dives today.
And what's really compelling here is how the origin, both the manga and the OVAs, takes this character who was significant, definitely, in the original 79 Gundam,
Oh, for sure.
but enriches her with this incredibly detailed backstory. So our mission really is to go beyond just like a surface look.
Right.
We want to really get the core elements of Sayla's arc in the origin, understand what makes her more than just, a supporting character.
Yeah, more than just Char's sister.
Exactly. Establish her as this crucial figure in her own right. And we're drawing from, well, a pretty detailed analysis that really digs into her origins, her motivations, and that duality you just mentioned.
Right, that duality.
Yeah.
The two faces. Born Artesia Som Deikun, daughter of the Zeon Zum Deikun.
The founding father himself.
And then she takes on the name Sayla Mass basically to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like much more than just a disguise. It's like a fundamental shift.
It really is. And Megumi Han, the voice actress, she did an amazing job portraying both Artesia and Sayla in the origin.
Phenomenal.
She actually talked about this conscious effort Artesia makes to become Sayla.
Yeah.
It's about adapting, enduring in a world that's just, hostile. And the origin explores this inherent split with a lot of sensitivity, I think. It shows how the two identities are constantly sort of feeding into each other.
It's like she's carrying this immense weight, the weight of her family name, her lineage.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's desperately trying to carve out her own path. And it all kicks off with a childhood just steeped in tragedy. I mean, being Zeon Daikun's daughter automatically puts a target on your back the second he dies.
Absolutely. Especially with the Zabi's grabbing power like they did. Ruthless.
So from a really young age, she and her brother Kazval are just thrown into this world of, betrayal,
Their father's death.
loss, and this constant looming threat from the Zabi family.
Exactly. And what's really striking in the origin compared to the original 1979 show is that this isn't some mystery revealed later.
No, it's right there from the start.
Yeah, it's laid out right away. This tragic background becomes the absolute foundation for her later actions. It fuels that deep, deep desire for peace she has, that aversion to suffering.
And even in those really dark early days, you get these little flashes of humanity, right? Like Rambaral saving her cat, Lucifer.
Yeah.
It seems like such a small thing, but it really sticks with you.
It does, doesn't it? It's this early moment of just like human connection in the middle of all this political chaos. A simple act of kindness that probably, had a huge impact on young Artesia. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, these early experiences are just crucial for understanding why she becomes such a strong moral compass later on, especially when you put her next to her brother.
Right. She ends up being this vital moral and sort of emotional counterweight to Kazval.
Who becomes Char Aznable, yeah.
The Red Comet himself.
Yeah.
They share the same noble background, the same initial trauma after their father's killed. But man, their paths just diverge so dramatically.
Completely. Kazval gets consumed by this need for revenge against the Zabis, right? He chooses this path of deception, military power.
Yeah, cloak and dagger stuff.
Whereas Sayla, she channels that same trauma into this deep compassion, this commitment to medicine, to helping people, and this real longing for a world without all that suffering.
It's fat.
And the origin really digs into that, how the exact same incredibly tough start can lead siblings down such radically different roads.
Okay, so let's maybe get into some more of the specifics. Her character profile, as the origin lays it out.
Sure.
Real name, Artesia Som Deikun, alias Sayla Mass. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the basics.
The iconic look, yeah.
But the timeline in the origin is really interesting, showing her develop from like age 6 right up to the start of the 1-year war.
Yeah, exactly. Born UC0062, that's Universal Century 0062 for anyone needing the reminder.
Right, the Gundam calendar.
She's around 6 to 9 during those key flashback scenes in the origin, and then she hits 17 right when the 1-year war kicks off.
And her family, as we've said, is just central. Father Zeon Zum Deikun, Mother Estrella Tor Deikun.
A former singer, interestingly. Zeon's lover.
Brother Casval, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Sayla Mass, this wealthy Earth Federation guy, a friend of the Daikins who steps in as their adoptive father, gives them shelter.
A crucial lifeline, really.
And then thinking about her, like, affiliations and where she is during the origin, she's constantly moving, isn't she?
She really is. Born in the Autonomous Republic of Munzo, that's Side 3.
Right.
Then living down in Spain on Earth, then later moves to Loom, which is Side 5. And all along, she's volunteering Earth Federation High Commissioner for Refugees, Miranda Central Hospital.
Shows that caring side early on.
Definitely. Before she eventually ends up joining the Earth Federation forces aboard the White Base.
That constant movement really hammers home her status as an exile, doesn't it? Always searching for safety, for somewhere to belong in this incredibly unstable time.
Exactly. And what's also really telling is her chosen path. She's a medical student.
Right.
That just screams her inherent desire to heal, to help. And her rank on the White Base, warrant officer, it's not super high, but you have to remember what the White Base was.
Yeah, not exactly standard military issue.
No, it was mostly kids, civilians thrown into war. Her rank signifies this level of authority, technical skill, especially medically, that made her absolutely vital for their survival.
Okay, so that paints a really vivid picture leading into the detailed backstory we see unfold. Let's start back in UC0068, her childhood in Munzo, Zeon's death, the Daikun faction falling apart.
Yeah, this period is just foundational. You see the immediate chaos, the Zabi family's ruthless power grab.
Awful.
And then Jim Baral stepping in. He's crucial in protecting Artesia, Casval, and their mother from the Zabis.
A brave move.
And again, there's that moment with Ram Baral saving Lucifer the cat. That little act of kindness just stands out amidst all the political backstabbing.
Then comes the escape, the exile to Earth. Jim Baral gets them out of Side 3.
Risky operation.
And they find refuge in Spain with Sayla Mass. They become Edward and Sayla Mass. New identities.
A chance to breathe, maybe.
But even on Earth, the Zabis' reach is long, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. That Zabi-orchestrated attack on the Mass home, it ends with Jim Baral dead. Shatters any illusion of safety they might have had.
Just brutal.
But it's also around this time, while she's volunteering in a refugee camp, that Sayla's compassion really comes to the forefront. There's a line, I think, about her just wanting to stop the tears.
Yeah, prevent any more tears from being shed. That says so much about her, even then.
Doesn't it? Just speaks volumes about her core character.
And then they move again. Texas Colony and Loom, Side 5. The peace is still pretty hard to find.
Yeah, no kidding. Diablo hoped Side 5 would be safer, but it's there that things get even more complicated, especially with the introduction of the real Char Aznable.
Oh, right. The look-alike.
Exactly. Casval meets his double, and that whole meticulously planned identity swap happens. The real Char dies, Casval takes his place, all driven by Casval's relentless need for revenge on the Zabis.
And Sayla finds out later that her brother's still alive, just under this new name. Jar, Tachi O'Hara tells her. That must have been.
Wow.
Incredibly confusing and complex for her, yeah. And then things get even worse with that anti-Zeon bandit attack on Texas Colony.
That feels like a huge turning point for Sayla personally, doesn't it? Oh, absolutely. That brutal attack and Don Diablo Mass dying in it, it forces Sayla to face the violence head on.
No more hiding.
Right. Her bravery, her leadership in defending the colony, she actually uses a Winchester rifle.
Wow.
It shows this massive shift towards self-defense. It's a catalyst, really, for her later willingness to fight when needed.
Which brings us eventually to her joining the White Base crew. She's in Side 7, still a medical student, when Zeon attacks.
Led by her own brother, ironically, though most don't know it yet.
The tragic irony is just layered on thick there, isn't it?
It really is. So she seeks refuge on the White Base as it launches in chaos. Her first role is helping the medical team doing communications. Fits right in with her skills and her nature.
But she doesn't just stay doing comms and first aid, does she? The origin shows her getting much more involved in the One-Year War, maybe in ways that surprise fans of the original show.
Definitely. During the Battle of Luim, that massive, destructive battle, she sees the devastation up close. She even spots Char's distinctive red Zaku II.
That must have been a moment.
Yeah. But it's really in the manga's version of the Battle of Ibawa, the final huge battle of the war, where her involvement really ramps up dramatically.
How so?
She's right there in the vanguard, piloting a customized RGM-79 GM custom, which is, basically comparable in specs to the original Gundam.
Whoa, okay. That's a serious upgrade from comms officer. taking on Cassilia Zabi's new type unit.
Yeah, these are pilots with enhanced spatial awareness, super reflexes.
In a GM custom, that's showing some serious piloting skill we didn't really see from her in the 79 series.
Not like this, no. Her GM custom eventually gets taken out by a bra mobile armor.
Oof, those are tough.
And she has to eject in the core pod. But the fact that she's in that fight in such a key battle really establishes her as a capable combatant in the origin story.
And all the while, she's dealing with the knowledge that the Char Aznable everyone talks about is actually her brother, Casval, the imposter.
Yeah, that ongoing tragic irony just adds this whole other layer of emotional weight to everything she goes through.
It really does. Okay, so with that whole history laid out, let's dig a bit deeper into her personality, her development through the origin. We know she's compassionate, brave. What else really defines Sayla in this version?
I think resilience is just massive for her. She goes through so much loss, so much trauma, but she never completely gives in to despair.
She keeps going.
Yeah, she has this quiet determination, this inner strength, even a kind of confidence, you know? And while she deeply wants peace, she's not naive. She accepts that sometimes you have to fight to protect people, to protect what's right.
The sources mention her being intelligent, gentle, confident, independent, and having daring. That feels pretty spot on.
It really does. It captures all those different facets of her character.
And that core Artesia-Sayla duality we talked about, it feels so fundamental to understanding her journey, right?
Yeah.
It's way more than just swapping names.
Oh, absolutely. It's about how she presents herself versus who she is deep down. Like Megumi Han pointed out, Artesia has this kind of innocence. While Sayla often has to suppress her feelings just to survive, Sayla becomes this necessary armor.
A shield.
Exactly. But you still see flashes of the real Artesia, the compassionate core, especially in quieter moments. Her whole journey is this really poignant shift from a loving kid to this, well, world-weary young adult. And that daring she has, it's part of how she survives.
And her relationship with Casval.
Wow.
It feels like the emotional heart of so much of her story. It starts with this deep brother-sister love, mutual concern.
Definitely.
But events just pull them in completely opposite directions.
It's such a complex bond. Even when he's Edward Mass, Casval is fiercely protective of her.
True.
But Sayla is constantly worried about him, about his involvement in everything, his transformation into Char. You could even argue that her piloting the Gundam briefly is partly her trying to understand the world he's moving in.
That's an interesting take.
And they process their father's legacy so differently, don't they? She focuses on preserving life, seeking peace. He's driven by revenge, by tearing things down to rebuild them.
Polar opposites, almost.
Yet, even with that huge gap opening between them, Sayla never quite gives up on him. She's still willing to confront him if she thinks she needs to.
And beyond Casval, her interactions with other people are also really important, right? Like Tiabolo Mass, he gave her that brief taste of normal life.
Yeah, and his death was such a turning point.
How so?
Well, his kindness gave them that temporary refuge, that illusion of normalcy she hadn't had. His violent death just rams home the danger they're always in, and it pushes her towards more independence, more self-reliance.
Right. And her connection with Amuro Ray. That feels special, too.
It does. She seems to just get the trauma he's going through as the Gundam pilot. She offers him this really unique kind of emotional support.
Yeah, she understands loss.
And with the rest of the White Base crew, the other kids basically, she often takes on this sort of older sister role. She provides this much-needed stability in all the chaos.
It's really clear that the origin lifts Sayla way beyond that sort of damsel in distress trope you sometimes saw in older stuff.
Oh, completely.
She really comes across as a true heroine, with her own agency, her own drive.
Exactly. Her transformation is all about her own resilience, her inner strength. Her actions aren't just reactions. They come from her core values, her determination to make a difference, even when things look impossible.
Okay, so let's talk skills. We know the medical training, the compassion driving her volunteer work and helping on the White Base. But as we said, she turns out to be a surprisingly good pilot.
Yeah, surprisingly good is an understatement sometimes. That time, she took the RX-78-2 Gundam out, unauthorized.
Right. Yeah.
It showed this clear natural talent for handling these massive machines. Then flying the G-Fighter, the core booster, mostly support roles, but she's clearly learning, improving all the time.
Building competence.
And then, of course, the manga, showing her in that GM custom at Abao Call. That's not just good, that's elite level. Holding her own against new types.
It really cements her development as a pilot. And then there are those hints, right, of her own new type potential. That connection with Char.
Yes, exactly. It's not as overt or maybe focused on as with Amuro or Char himself,
Sure.
but there are these moments, these intuitive flashes, especially relating to her brother, that definitely suggest she has some latent new type ability.
So she's got the medical skills, the piloting chops, possible new type flashes.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, don't forget basic competence. Communications on the white base, handling that Winchester rifle back in Texas colony,
Right.
and showing leadership during that attack. She's just remarkably capable all around.
It's also interesting how the Origin presents her across the different media, like the manga versus the OVA.
Yeah, the original manga by Yasuhiko is really the foundation. It gives us the most detailed history, her inner thoughts, and crucially, that GM custom scene at Bioaqua.
The definitive version, in a way.
Pretty much. The OVA series then adapts a lot of that, focusing mostly on her backstory before the 1-year war. It's very faithful visually and in spirit.
Looks amazing.
But because of where it stops, timeline-wise, it doesn't cover things like Aboaqua in the same detail.
And then there's the Kukuru's Doan's Island movie, more recent, but fits in with the Origin look and feel.
Right. It's set during the 1-year war. Sayla's part of the White Base crew, pilots the core booster. It feels consistent with the OVA portrayal, same visual style, same voice actors.
Speaking of which,
It reinforces that unified vision for her in the Origin timeline. Oh, and there's a mention sometimes of Mobile Suit Gundam, the Origin Artesia 00083, but our sources don't really elaborate on what that is.
right, okay. And the voice actresses, they're so important for bringing her to life. Megumi Han in Japanese. Just nails that duality we keep coming back to.
She really does. Widely praised for capturing both Artesia's innocence and Sayla's more guarded strength.
And the English dub. Colleen O'Shaughnessy, sometimes credited as Maggie O'Connor. She's consistent across the OVAs and the Doan's Island movie, too.
Yeah, she does a great job providing that consistency for English-speaking audiences. It really helps maintain that unified feel.
We should also give a nod to Yu Inoue, the original voice from '79.
Absolutely. A huge talent.
Her passing was a loss, but recasting with Megumi Han for the Origin allowed them to explore this earlier part of Sayla's life with a fresh voice, while still keeping the Origin continuity tight.
Yeah, that consistency in casting across the Origin projects really helps solidify it as its own distinct take on those early years.
So, wrapping things up here,
Yeah.
it seems really clear that Sayla Mass in Mobile Suit Gundam, the Origin is so much more than just Char's sister or Zeon's daughter.
Oh, absolutely. She totally transcends those connections.
She becomes this, well, crucial figure in her own right in this version of the story.
Yeah, but protagonist, really, driven by her own motivations, that compassion, that desire for peace. She's the emotional anchor in a story full of politics and war and just horror.
And her compassion isn't shown as a weakness, is it? It's her strength.
Exactly. It's the source of her resilience. And being that moral counterpoint to Char, her brother, it really throws those big themes into sharp relief: destiny, choice, how people deal with suffering.
And she acts. Her contribution to the war, especially that Abawa Kwa role in the manga, makes her a genuine war hero in this continuity.
Definitely. The Origin really gives her the space to develop in a way that maybe some fans felt later Gundam series didn't fully capitalize on.
Yeah, lets her breathe, lets her grow, lets her make her own mark. And her perspective, seeing things through her eyes, gives us such a valuable way to understand Char, understand Zeon's legacy, understand how the 1-year war even started.
Yeah, the Sayla we get in the Origin is just distinct. She's nuanced, she's deeply human. You absolutely need her perspective to fully grasp this version of the Gundam universe. Her story is a key piece in Yasuhiko's whole narrative about, that longing for peace in a century just torn apart by conflict.
So just to sum up our deep dive then, we've traced Sayla's incredible journey, from this exiled princess hiding for her life to a really resilient, capable soldier who's actively shaping events, all guided by this unwavering moral core and her commitment to peace. Her role in the Origin is just huge and really compelling.
It really is. And maybe one last thought for you to chew on. Think about how Sayla's compassion, her constant yearning for peace, how it stands out against all the destruction around her.
Yeah, it's such a contrast.
What do her choices, her sacrifices, what does her spirit ultimately tell us about maybe the possibility of hope, the power of connection, even when things are at their absolute worst? It's a really unique viewpoint in the whole Gundam saga.
Something definitely worth thinking about more.
For sure.
Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with us into the rich world of Mobile Suit Gundam, the Origin, and the undeniably fascinating character of Sayla Mass.